Welcome everyone. I want to invite you to join us in our interview today with Mr. Gil Elan, who is the President and CEO of the Southwest Jewish Congress. Welcome, Mr. Elan. We're so glad to have you with us here at Eagle Mountain.
Delighted to be here, Pastor Terry.
First of all, tell us what the Jewish Congress is.
Well, the Southwest Jewish Congress is an organization that focuses on three separate issues. One issue is mainly educational programs on Israel and the Middle East. A lot of people don't understand what's going on over there. They want to understand, and we do regular briefings both in Dallas and Fort Worth and other areas within the region. Current events, an analysis of current events and why it matters to Americans and why Israelis care about what Americans think.
So this is an outreach beyond the Jewish community,
Absolutely.
but into other communities as well.
I would say that more than 50% of the average audience are Christians.
Oh, so you're in churches probably more than some of my congregation. So what else are the focuses, other focuses?
The other focuses are the Constitution. We believe strongly that the guarantees and rights that the Constitution affords every American are not just sacred, but make America what it is, make it unique. And we know that there are movements in this country right now that are trying to change the Constitution, that are trying to subvert it to another type of laws, a set of laws, a set of values which do not guarantee rights, for example, to women or to minorities.
Then you said there was a third?
The third
focus?
Is that we celebrate diversity in the community mainly by honoring women. We have special events around the year where we honor women who are unique, who aside from their everyday jobs, contribute to their community by encouraging and by empowering girls and women to overcome obstacles, to be their best, and to just succeed in life. And we believe that those women don't always get the kind of recognition they deserve. And they're from different ethnic groups, from different religions, from different sectorial groups.
That's exciting. I like the sound of all that. Now, you're the President and CEO of the Southwest Jewish Congress. Is that position what puts you in such unique place to hear the backstory of what's going on in Israel and the Middle East? Well,
not really. I'd say it's the other way around. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel in the IDF.
Okay.
I served in the paratroopers. I've been a Middle East analyst now for about 25 years. So not only do I have good friends who are still there and still serving and still in key positions, but I also have access to information and I keep informed as to what's going on. So my briefings tend to be literally up to the minute.
Well, there are a lot of things going on in Israel. Always, for several thousand years, there have been a lot of things going on in Israel. But what do you think is the hot button, if you had one thing to talk about to Americans in general, or maybe even specifically to Christians, what do you think is the most important thing for them to know?
I think the most important thing for Americans to know, for Christians to know, is to understand what are the root causes of the conflicts in the Middle East today. When you ask the average person, what do you think is the cause of all the conflicts, of all the fighting in the Middle East, usually they'll say the establishment of the State of Israel, which you and I both know, Pastor Terry, is totally far from the truth. There are five root causes. The first and foremost is the Shiite-Sunni conflict. The Shiite-Sunni conflict, which we see being manifested now in Syria, in Iraq, with regards to the Iranian nuclear bomb. This has all got to do with that same conflict. The Iranian bomb is less being built in order to attack Israel, no matter what their rhetoric is about. It's against Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi Arabians know that. And that's why this is so important. So understanding that that is one of the causes of conflict. Understanding that another cause of the conflict right now, for example, in Egypt, is the radicalization of the Sunni Muslims. There are Sunni Muslims and there are Shiite Muslims. The majority is Sunni Muslims around the world. And the radicalization only started in the 1920s with the establishment of the Muslim Brotherhood by Sheikh Hassan al-Banna. And they basically say, look, culture, modern culture, Western culture, that's not for us. We're going to go back to the basics of Islam. And if you oppose us, then we will make sure that you are will not be an enemy of Islam. So that's this radicalization is what we're seeing in Egypt right now. Manifested in Egypt, we're seeing it happen in North Africa right now with the Muslim Brotherhood trying to take over and trying to recreate the caliphate and change all the other types of government. They do not believe in statehood. There's no such thing, according to the Muslim Brotherhood, as a Egyptian Muslim or a Syrian Muslim or a Libyan Muslim or a Algerian Muslim. As far as they're concerned, you're a member of the Ummah, of the nation of Islam, and countries don't mean anything. What we have to recreate is the caliphate. There should be one caliph, one ruler who's both spiritual and civilian and political. And the whole world should observe Sharia law. And that's something that people don't understand. And if they understood that, then they would know where to stand and how to help those forces who are against it.
So those are those roots for the conflict in the Middle East that's happening all around. Why is there so much focus on the state of Israel?
Well, Pastor Chair Terri, that's a very, very good question. And unfortunately, the answer is one a lot of people are not going to like to hear. Anti-Semitism was, is, and will be. It's still around there. It's manifesting itself in Europe right now to a point where Jews are just leaving countries. And it's easy to blame the Jews. And that's basically why the focus is on Israel. Israel has done nothing but come back to its ancient homeland after 2,000 years of exile. Israel did not take anything from anybody. On the contrary, Israel is giving to the world, and Israel is a light and a beacon to the world. But it's easy to blame Israel, blame the Jews. So anti-Semitism now, which is perhaps not politically correct, is now anti-Zionism.
So how would you define anti-Zionism?
Anti-Zionism is basically, well, first let's define Zionism. Zionism, the way we define it in Israel, is simply that Israel is the ancient homeland of the Jews. We've come back to our homeland. It's a sovereign state now, and any Jew that wants to has a right to come, if they want to live in Israel. That's all Zionism is. It's not racist, as the UN once tried to call it. It's not against any other religion or any other people or any other nation. It's simply the right of the Jews to live in this small, tiny little section of land which is smaller than New Jersey and call it their homeland. Anti-Zionism, therefore, is anybody that opposes the right of the Jews to the land of Israel.
So let's go back then to the Sunni-Shiite conflict and how that is what's stirring in the Middle East and how that matters to the United States.
Very much so. The Sunni-Shiite conflict started right after Muhammad died. And there was an argument over who would be the successor. And one faction said it should be his son-in-law and cousin, Ali, who was married to his daughter. The other faction said no, it should be one of his companions, because Muhammad always said this is not a religion of personality cult or of heritage or dynasties. And eventually the first caliph after Muhammad was one of the companions. And then when he died, again the faction that supported Ali, the Ali faction, wanted Ali to be. And again he did not. He eventually became the fourth caliph. But after he died, and his faction believed that the succession should naturally go down to his children or his grandchildren, who are direct descendants or bloodline of Muhammad. That's when the split came. There was a terrible battle, the Battle of Karbala, when Ali's son Hussein was killed, and the others. It was really a very, very low point in Islam, in early Islam. At that point, the Ali faction in Arabic is Shia. So the Shiite Ali broke away and said, that's it. We don't want any part of the Sunnah, which means pathway, the straight and narrow. And the Shia were persecuted by the Sunnah, by the Sunni Muslims all over the Middle East for years, for hundreds of years. And today, only 5% of the Muslims in the world are Shiites. The rest are Sunnis. And the Shiites have got a big, big blood revenge situation against the Sunni. They want revenge. They want to prove to the world that Shiaism is the true version of Islam, not the Sunni version of Islam. And that this can only happen after there's a great disaster, a great war, a lot of casualties. One of their philosophers talks about the skies being red with fire and the streets of Baghdad running with blood. And they talk about that, and then their Messiah, the Mahdi, the 12th Imam being a successor to Ali, the 12th Imam will reappear. He went into occlusion at the age of 5. He disappeared as their Messiah, as the leader of the Shiites, and then the whole world will understand that Islam is the true religion, or the true version of the one religion, and that the Shiaism is the true version of Islam. So, wherever there are Shiites and Sunnis, there's always been conflict. They can never get together. There is no way they will ever get together.
And right now, Iran is being led by?
Iran is Shiite, and Iran is being led by Shiite mullahs, by Shiite leaders. And Iran sees this opportunity. How can they become leaders in the Middle East? How can they become, take control? How can they get revenge back? There's only one way in this modern world, and that is if you have a nuclear weapon. So the Iranian nuclear weapon is not really geared against Israel, though Israel is threatened by it, and they will never accept Israel. And they will take the first opportunity to try to wipe Israel off the map. But the Iranian weapon is actually geared against Saudi Arabia, which is the leader, the largest and most important of the spiritual Sunni religion, the Sunni version of Islam. Egypt, of course, which is also all Sunni, they're also a target. And that's the largest Arab Sunni country in the world, as are the Gulf states. So it's not just Saudi Arabia and Israel that don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. It's all the Arab countries, it's the Gulf states, it's the North African states. As a matter of fact, Shiites only exist right now in any number in Iran, in Iraq, and in Lebanon, Hezbollah.
So one thing that's important to understand then is this idea that if we can create world confusion and world war, and that their Messiah, it's an open door for him to return. So with that in mind, that's why they would have complete abandon and not care if they have a nuclear weapon and use it. They are not guided by the same moral constraints that Israel or the United States might be in using a nuclear weapon. They see it as something they're obligated to. Would that be a way that
the end justifies the means? And yes, they're not only obligated to, but they're also obligated to die. They don't mind, because their deaths will bring the Mahdi, will bring their Messiah, and they will be resurrected. And this is what's, Islam, resurrection is a very, very important part of the religion and belief. The whole concept of the shaheeds, of the martyrs, is that, well, we're dying now, but we're going to have a great time in paradise, in heaven, and also we will be resurrected together with all the fighters of Islam.
So what is America doing that you can see that in their policies, in their actions, that is actually supportive of this Shiite agenda that we see operating, especially through Iran?
I think that the attempts, the recent attempts to try to reconcile with Iran, to try to talk with them, to try to, there were 5 requests by the White House for the president to meet with President Rouhani when he came to the UN last month. They were all rebuffed by the Iranians, by the way. I think that these attempts are harming the issue. First of all, they are alienating the entire Sunni Muslim world. And I'm talking about the entire Sunni Muslim world. They're alienating them. They're saying that, oh, the Americans are too close to the Iranians, they're too close to the Shiites. Look what's happening. America said that it would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and yet just in the last few days we've seen there's an attempt to somehow come to an agreement in Geneva that would enable the Iranians to continue enriching and reach breakout stage, so they will have a nuclear weapon that threatens Israel, but also the Sunni countries of the Middle East. And I think that America's attitude, the way that it's being done, it might be for good intentions, but it's being done the wrong way. It's sending the absolute wrong message. The Iranians are laughing and delighted, and they're continuing to operate their centrifuges. They're continuing to enrich uranium to the point of weapons grade, and they are continuing to build the nuclear reactor in Iraq, which is a heavy water reactor, which will give them plutonium for a nuclear weapon.
Can you just, in a nutshell, for for the current affair dummies, that just explain to us in a nutshell this Geneva, I want to call it the Geneva Convention, but this convention that's been going on in Geneva, this council, and America's actions and exactly what they are, what has been said in that Council of Nations?
Well, we have to go back and realize that America, this administration, had laid down very specific red lines. And one of the red lines had to do with Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, cannot be allowed to reach a stage where it's a nuclear weapon. That's a red line. And that any method, including the military method, is on the table. Nothing is off the table. And the idea of this conference, because America was threatening, and of course Israel was also threatening to stop Iran from having nuclear weapons using military action, the idea was to somehow reach some sort of a negotiation. And even Israel said, okay, if you can do it diplomatically, that's great, but you've got a problem. And the problem is that Iran is already at breakout stage. David Albright, who was a weapons inspector for the UN and is now head of this, a private organization, has claimed, has given proof, if we sent gave a report a few weeks ago, that Iran is literally within weeks away of producing nuclear weapons, of enriching to the point of 95%, 98%, where they have enough fissile material for nuclear weapons. They have already completed the testing and the development of the warhead. They've already miniaturized the warhead so it can be put on a missile, although these bombs can be delivered in any one of several ways. And that, therefore, there is no time for negotiations. There is no time for debates. So what the powers with America and the P5+1, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany, did was they organized sanctions. They have a regime of sanctions which are hurting the Iranians and it's bringing the Iranians to their knees. So now the Iranians came and said, okay, we'll talk about it. We're willing to consider maybe. Now, this is not the first time that these negotiations have been going on. The current president of Iran, the smiling Rouhani, who everybody is charmed by, has been running the nuclear program for the last 16 years. And he was the negotiator when they were talking 3, 4, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And he said in his book, boy, did we pull the wool over their eyes. Did we fool them? We smiled and we talked and we came to the table and we made a little concession here, a little concession there. In the meantime, we built our facilities. And now we are ready to build the bomb. So, and that's the smiling president. So the situation is that the Iranians have said, look, we want to ease the sanctions, and we're willing to make concessions, and we're willing to give up this, and we're willing to give up that. The United States, Susan Rice, Secretary of State Kerry, Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor, specifically laid out a list of things the Iranians have to do before they come to the table, before they're even going to be negotiated with. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, agreed with President Obama a few months ago at the White House that there are 4 things the Iranians have to do. 1 is immediately stop all enrichment. 2, remove all enriched uranium from Iran, export it, get it out of there. 3, dismantle the centrifuges and dismantle the secret underground enrichment facility at Fordow, near the city of Qom, which is buried deep underneath a mountain. And the 5th thing, the last one, is to stop and eventually dismantle the new heavy water nuclear reactor near the city of Arak, because that can produce the plutonium. Once the Iranians did that, then you're supposed to come and talk to them. For some reason, what's going on right now is that the centrifuges are running, the construction in Iraq is continuing, they're enriching uranium up to 20%, and there are talks about relieving the sanctions. That's what's going on. That's why it's so confusing. Israel has said, and Netanyahu said, this is totally unacceptable. This is a very bad deal. Now, they didn't reach a conclusion this past week, this past weekend. The talks are going to continue on the 20th, 9 days. And they, I mean, God forbid, in my opinion, if they do reach an agreement, because the agreement's going to be one that will enable Iran to continue enriching uranium-235. Like we said, they're already within weeks they can break out and create one bomb. Within 2 months they could have 6 bombs. And the sanctions will be lifted. There's huge pressure by international corporations to lift the sanctions. They
Western organizations, correct?
Western multinational.
And they're pushing for the sanctions to be lifted because
Iran has offered them incredible carrots, if you want, just to do business. They're offering to enable American and Western companies to search for oil and extract oil and sell it. They're offering tax havens for these corporations. They're offering 70 million consumers who are mostly middle class and who would love to buy goods. They're offering a way for American and European companies, Western companies, to somehow get out of this recession or the current economic situation. It's very tempting. These corporations are putting huge pressure on the leaders of the countries.
So the world overall in the news and media and so forth see that council in Geneva as they are discussing the possibility of lifting sanctions. However, behind the scenes for 5-6 months now, some sanction lifting has already been going on.
That's true, Pastor Terry, absolutely. And not just by the Americans, but also by the Europeans. The sanctions are in several areas. One is banking. For example, the Iranians have been cut off from the SWIFT system, which is the system of interbanking, that's the way trade and loans, etc., are done internationally. Their assets, they had sold a lot of oil, and a lot of that oil money was in, or still in now, in European banks. They were frozen by the sanctions, mainly by the American-led sanctions. They are prevented from exporting oil. They are prevented from importing equipment that they need in order to repair their oil extraction equipment. Food, they're limited with. Now, the U.S. mainly, the U.S. government has issued waivers. And there are countries, first of all, there are countries that are ignoring it, like Russia and China. They just ignore the sanctions. But there are other countries who were given a waiver. Okay, you can buy some oil from the Iranians because you need it. You can sell some goods to the Iranians. We won't sanction your banks if they do some trade with this or that Iranian bank, etc. So there has been a slight lifting of the sanctions, but they are still biting and they're still hurting. The Iranians came to Geneva last week on their knees, and literally. And if Congress will, as it is planning to, as it's already discussing right now, increase the pressure, increase the sanctions, despite a request apparently from the president to lay back on that for a while. No, now's the time to increase it. Now's the time to force the Iranian leadership to make a decision. What's more important to you? Your starving people, your economy, your greatness as a past and maybe future empire, or making a nuclear weapon right now for some short-term satisfaction.
To not completely change subject, but to just look at the different emphasis, what do you see as either the role of Christians, or maybe a better way to put it would be the impact that Christians can have where these things are concerned?
Absolutely. And thank you for that question, because I think it's a great question, Pastor. In this country, many countries, Christians perhaps are either a small minority or they're not, they might not be a minority, but they don't really have an effect. This country is different. And America is still the largest, biggest economy, strongest superpower, biggest military in the world. And how America uses its power and its influence can change things. The vote. By voting here in the States, Christians right here are free to vote as they want. They are not free to vote in other countries, in Arab countries, for example. They are not free to express their own views. But if you, vote the right, politicians that feel the same as you do, that feel the same importance about these issues, on these issues, for the world and for the betterment of mankind. And once they're in office, make sure you continue to lobby them. Make sure you continue to write to them. That is the best thing you can do. Prayer, of course, is very important. There's no question about that. And that definitely, I can attest to that. But use your power at the voting station.
So let me go back to that last point about prayer. So you're a Jewish man, and I can see that the idea of Christians praying for Israel and for Jewish people has an effect on you. It affects you. Does it have a direct effect? I think sometimes when we say it really is supportive, that the American idea is more like a cheerleader, but doesn't it run deeper than that for the people of Israel, especially the ones that are literally in the crosshairs, to know that there are Christian people on this side of the ocean supporting them in prayer? What effect does that have?
It has a tremendous effect. And we can go back to the year 670, the fall of Masada. Mm-hmm. Now, when Masada, which was a fortress in the Judean desert, surrounded by the Romans, with 600 and some odd 900 defenders still on it, when they saw from the ramparts of that fortress in the desert, they saw Jerusalem, and they saw Jerusalem burning after the Romans captured the city and burned the temple. They really felt that they were the last Jews alive in the world. And rather than fall in the hands of the Romans, they didn't realize that Jews had escaped and that there were Jewish communities all over the world. They thought that they were the last Jews in the world, and they committed suicide en masse, all of them. Fathers killed their children and their wives, and then friends killed their friends, until the last one standing stuck a knife in himself, because they would not want to fall prisoner to the Romans. The Masada complex is something we Jews have been living with for 2,000 years. And there have been frequent times, even in the recent past, when we did feel alone. And that the world, there's a song when I was a child, I remember the song went, the whole world is against us, but that's something we're used to because our parents told us about that and our grandparents told us about that. So the whole world is against us. And there are times that we develop this Masada complex, knowing through your wonderful efforts and those of other Christians here, knowing that there's a large number of Christians in this country, in other countries, that believe in Israel, that believe in Zionism, that believe that God put us there for a reason, and are praying for us, that takes away the Masada complex. We are not alone in the world. It has a tremendous impact.
Do you think that energizes the nation even to stand up in a different way, even politically, than a stronger courage or boldness or confidence, knowing that they're maybe not quite as alone as it might seem?
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I mean, I remember when I was in the Army, and we were on ambush, in the Jordan Valley. They weren't even terrorists at the time; they were just infiltrators coming in and back and forth. And we'd come back to the base, and there'd be mail. And aside from mail from the family, we got mail from churches, and we got mail from Christian groups, and just said, hey, we're praying for you, believe in you. Being somebody who spoke fluent English because I happened to be born here in the States, I was able to translate most of those letters to those colleagues of mine, those friends of mine, to the other soldiers, and they said, wow, these guys, where are they? They're in California, they're in Texas, and they're thinking about us. And yes, it does, certainly, and it did energize us. It made us make sure that ambush we did perfectly, that nobody got in that night to harm Israel or the Jews or anybody else who happened to be in the country.
One last thing. If someone wanted to be more educated in a simple way about the issues in the Middle East and to know what's going on, how would you direct them? And where would they start?
Very easy. I'm sure most people have got a computer. and access to the internet.
If they're watching this, they do.
If they're watching this, that's right, they are. So what they should do is this. There are several websites. There are two websites that I can think of right now. One is called dailyalert, one word, .com. .org. Dailyalert.org. .org. It's a free newsletter that comes out every morning. I usually get it about 7 o'clock in the morning, straight to my email box. And it's a summary of all the news items and analysis of what's going on in the Middle East, in Israel and the Middle East. It's from Israeli papers, it's from papers from around the world. It's basically like clips, but they give the whole articles and the whole summaries. Another very good website, which I would go to, is Ynet. Ynet.co.il.
Spell that.
Y-N-E-T.
Y-N. Oh, Ynet.
Ynet. Y-N-E-T.co.il. It's the English version of Israel's largest newspaper, Yediot Achronot. Yediot. and it's in English, and it's updated every 20 minutes or so, I would say. So you really get update. The Daily Alert you get once a day, but you get a very, very good, excellent summary of the events and of the analysis of the events. Ynet is just breaking news in English from Israel, from the Middle East, from around the world. But as it's got to do with, as it relates to Israel, to Jews, and to U.S.-American relations.
So if we went to one of those websites, would we get the Israeli analysis of American actions?
Yes, you would, definitely. And again, these are non-political. These are totally independent. Both of them are totally independent publications. One is published by the from Jerusalem, that's the Daily Alert, and the other in Tel Aviv. And there are writers there who are critical. I mean, these are not single-fact papers, publications. They're independent, and yes, there are critical articles, and there are favorable articles, and there are commentary, and there is, well, if I would have been in Geneva, I would have A, B, C, D. I saw that today. It's, yes, they would give you a pretty good, pretty broad, like I said, nonpartisan.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to our audience before we end?
Whatever you're doing, it's working. Israel is a strong, powerful country. Israel's faced many challenges. Israel will face more challenges. Israel's now facing the challenge of Iran. It's facing the challenge of what's going on in Syria in the north. Your thoughts, your prayers are working, because Israel has developed, today at the age of 65, is just beginning to reach maturity, and is just beginning to show what it can do. And it has been a light to the nations. Your appreciation of that is amazing.
Thank you, Mr. Elan. It's certainly been nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Pastor Terri.